Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm a mom. It's been a hot minute since I've posted on YouTube, and yeah, I wanted to get back into sharing and posting and being present on this platform because I am a YouTube ride or die girl. And yeah, I just felt like I haven't had like the time or the space to create, and I finally feel like I'm on the other side of that now, and I'm so excited to share. But before I just get back to vlogs and just like my life in general, I wanted to have just like a little sit down chat of essentially the last 4.5, 5 months. So yeah. If you're new here, my name is Megan. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and watching. And if you're not new, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I did get a drink of choice. We're gonna crack some, oh, I didn't grab a glass. Not a can girly, but whatever. The Zevia Cola. So good. Okay, so I wrote myself a little list of things that I wanted to cover on this video specifically. And I'm going to be talking about labor and delivery, specifically my C-section experience, recovery, feeding the girls, navigating routine and life with twins, how I'm feeling, and just doing like a little mental check-in, how the girls are doing now, and just like an update of where we are in life, and essentially like a what's next moment. So yeah, this is just like a sit down vlog style chit chat with me, because yeah, like I said, I wanted to update you guys on just like what's going on in my life and get you up to speed so that I'm not just like jumping into like 5 months ahead and like where the time has gone, right? And I've gotten a lot of questions on Instagram, and I've seen comments on my previous YouTube videos, so I kind of just want to like share them here. But yes, I am officially a twin mom. It has been the craziest, hardest, most overwhelming but exciting and fulfilling experience of my life. I can't even put it into words what this experience has been like for me, and it's only just begun. But let's start from the beginning. So if you're new here, I'm 33 and I got pregnant. I found out I was pregnant in April of last year. So literally like Easter weekend, I found out I was pregnant. I didn't tell anyone other than my husband. We chose to keep it a secret until closer to my first ultrasound, which here in Ontario, there's kind of like a backlog of like ultrasounds and getting your scans done. So I didn't have my first ultrasound till 12 weeks. And so that was a huge moment for us because we didn't know we were having twins until the 12-week scan. And so I have a whole other video that like goes over that whole process and like finding out that we're having twins, so go watch that if you're interested. But my pregnancy in general was really good. I got put into a high-risk category because I was carrying mono-die twins, which essentially means that I have identical girls. They're each in their own sac, but they share a placenta. And so because they share a placenta, meaning they share resources, I got put into this like high-risk category, and I had to go to McMaster, which is an hour away from where I live, on a bi-weekly basis up until essentially my due date. So we delivered the girls via a planned C-section at 36 and 5 days. And we made that decision. I had a really good pregnancy and I was a candidate for a vaginal birth. But I just, after doing like a lot of research and talking to their moms who have been through it, and just like the type of person I am, like I'm a very like type A, organized, want to know what's going on person. I also like don't do well with hospital and medical experiences, like in general. Like I don't even do well getting my eyes checked at the optometrist. I don't do well at the dentist. Like I just have like white coat syndrome. And because of that, I wanted to take the path that was, I want to say like the most safe or the most like efficient. I don't know like the proper like term to say, but like I wanted to do whatever was going to like give me more assurance that my girls were gonna come here safe versus going through a vaginal birth and having option or like potential one of like it goes smooth and everything's fine, because there's so many beautiful vaginal births with twins that go okay, or the experience where like something goes wrong and I'm having issues with twin B and whatever. I don't need to go like down the rabbit hole of like why I decided, but that's essentially what I decided that I wanted to do. I wanted my girls to just be here when I knew they were at a good weight. I could have it scheduled. I knew what was going on. I knew with a scheduled C-section, it's a very like a slower process versus an emergency C-section, and I understood the recovery going into it and what that would mean afterwards if we chose to have more children. And yeah, it just gave me like more peace of mind with the delivery process. So we went in for our appointment literally to have our girls delivered on November 20th. And we got there really early in the morning because you have to go through triage and get all like set up and ready to go. And then they were born at 11:42 and 11:43, so a minute apart. And it was a very like overwhelming experience. Again, I just personally like don't do well with those experiences, like medical related things. And so it was just very overwhelming for me in general. Obviously Daniel was with me the whole time, but yeah, just like going through the experience of getting there and them walking you through what's going on. You're getting IVs, you are waiting for a long time, and then going into the OR, you go in by yourself because they have to give you the epidural just with all the doctors and nurses and everyone else that's like part of the surgery before Daniel can come in. And so yeah, it's a very sterile environment. If you've been in an OR before, you know, but it's cold, it's very sterile, you're already nervous. You're with all these people. It's quite a big room because we're having twins, so I need a team for each baby, so there was a lot of people in there. And yeah, it was very like overwhelming, but everyone told me getting a C-section, like it's a lot and it's scary and it's not great, but like it goes by so quick. And the moment that you hear your babies cry, you almost like forget about everything else. And I didn't really understand it until it happened, but truly, like as I'm like laying there like about to get started, I'm like freaking out. I'm so nervous, I'm crying, I'm like holding Daniel's hand so hard. I'm scared. And like literally seconds later, because they do it so fast, I hear Quinn, who is baby A, cry, and you forget about it. You're just like, oh my god, like my baby's here, I can hear her, she's crying. And then, you know, they take Quinn to see me, and then they go like get her ready and checked out and get her in a blanket and everything. And again, like seconds later, I hear Piper, who is baby B, cry, and same thing. So it's just like a magical experience. Like they're here and I'm like so happy. And then yeah, basically from there they keep the babies with you the entire time, at least in my experience. So like Daniel held one and a nurse held the other, just like with me the whole time, kept them like on my chest while they essentially like put me back together, sewed me back up. And then you get brought to the recovery section where they just really want to monitor you to make sure there's no bleeding and everything's going well. The babies are with me the entire time. They're on my chest. We're just like snuggling, like they're sleeping. Like it's just such a beautiful moment. And then you essentially get wheeled to your room that you have for the next couple of the nights, because with a C-section, you do have to stay for a little bit longer than if it were a vaginal birth, like assuming no issues. And yeah, I got to see like my whole family, like as we came out of the OR section and with the babies on my chest. And it's just like such a beautiful moment to like see my parents there and see Daniel's parents, and like we have like 2 babies now. And the girls were born at 5'11", I think, and 5'12", so little girls but very close in weight. And then yeah, we got brought to our room. In terms of like my recovery in the hospital, it's pretty like painful and uncomfortable. You can't really walk, like you have a catheter in, you're just really sore, like you just went through so much. And I ended up having some hemorrhaging, so that was a lot to go through if you've experienced it. But essentially they put a lot of pressure on you to I don't know how to like say this without being like graphic, but essentially like to release the blood and get any clots out. And so it's just really painful and uncomfortable, but it goes by so quick. Like at the time it's very uncomfortable and painful, and I hated it, and I was so scared because I just don't do well with that stuff. But it's done, and it was such a blip. And then we got to come home with our girls, and in the hospital they started losing some weight, as do like every baby. But I tried breastfeeding, and I was able to hand express quite a bit of colostrum. They were really impressed, and that was good. And we were giving the babies that. We did have to do some supplement with formula, just because again, having a C-section, it just takes my body longer to bring the milk in. And they did continue to lose weight, which I was nervous about because they were already so small. But they told us that if I was going to be meeting up with my midwife the following day after being released, and then midwife would make a plan, that they would be willing to release me and the babies versus keeping the babies there to make sure they gain weight. And so that was the plan. So we met with the midwife as soon as we basically got home, and she essentially made a plan for us in terms of doing some breastfeeding, pumping, as well as supplementing with formula to kind of get the girls back to their original weight, and then obviously going out from there. The first week home was really bad. It was not good. It was very draining. I was obviously like healing from a major surgery, and now we have these 2 newborn preemie babies to take care of, that we have no experience taking care of babies. And going through the hurdles of feeding was just so overwhelming. The girls ended up losing more weight at home, and quite a bit. They got down to 5 pounds, and it was pretty upsetting. I was also going through baby blues. I didn't think I'd be someone who would get baby blues, just because I don't even know why I didn't think I would get it. I just, like, you hear about those things and you're like, that's not gonna be me because like I'm invincible. I don't even know. But I did get it pretty bad on like day 3-4 of being home, and I cried just like so much about everything. I even cried at like the thought of Abel, our dog, feeling like, does he feel like I don't love him enough? Like anything just like sent me off. So it was like the most like emotionally draining, overwhelming week ever. And on top of that, I'm being told like what I'm doing isn't essentially good enough, because my babies are losing weight and they're not gaining, and it's going downhill, and they're obviously crying, like they're hungry. And so from an early standpoint, we decided to kind of like cut out breastfeeding, because basically them being so small, it was taking so much energy to essentially breastfeed on me and then drink after whatever they were being supplemented. And so we basically moved to exclusively pumping and bottle feeding. So they would either have my breast milk, or if I didn't have enough, they would get some formula. And from then on, they started to gain weight, and they did really well with that. And that essentially was my journey with feeding. So I'm gonna get into feeding like in a second, but before that, in terms of my recovery, I actually did really well. My doctor was incredible. I'm so grateful to him that I had him throughout my entire pregnancy, as well as in the surgery room, because I know that it often doesn't happen for people. So I was so grateful for that, but they did such a good job. I healed so nice. Even speaking to like my midwife, my physiotherapist, they were like super impressed with like my incision and how it was healing. I really took it easy. I like followed the rules because I did not want to be in a place where something tore, or like I just like had to be bedridden again. So I really made sure to take care of myself. I rested like as much as I could. I took stairs really slow. Our whole house is full of stairs if you've watched the vlogs. And I didn't lift anything other than like my babies. So I healed really well, and I was like super like shocked, I guess, at the recovery. I was really worried about it, especially hemorrhaging, and especially just like going, I've never even had a surgery. I've never broken a bone before, so I've never like gone through that before. But overall recovery was slow, but it wasn't bad at all. So that's that for like recovery. I'm still doing physiotherapy. I'm doing scar tissue massage, and overall I'm just like wanting to get my body pre-pregnancy back, because I just feel very like weak and small. Okay, so feeding. So like I said, we went through the hurdles of the girls like losing some weight and navigating that, and once they were essentially going upwards in terms of putting weight on, I felt really good about the system we had in place, which was I was exclusively pumping, and majority of their bottles ended up being breast milk via bottle. And then what I didn't have essentially would be the ready to feed formula. And we kind of continued on that path, and I had a lot of hopes and dreams during my pregnancy, and even at the early stages, to tandem feed twins. That was like one of my goals. I really wanted to try and achieve that. I wanted to have that bond, because I also like don't know if I'm ever gonna be pregnant again. I've always wanted like 2 children, and now I have 2 children, and I don't know if I'll get pregnant again. It's obviously like too early to have those conversations, but I wanted the experience of like being able to breastfeed and have that bond. And as the weeks and as the months went by, I really got stuck on exclusively pumping and bottle feeding because it was working, and the girls were and are thriving. They were gaining such good weight. They always stayed very consistent in their weight. Like they've always been either the same weight or off by like a couple ounces. They were just trending so well. And because of that, I really got like hyper fixated on the routines that we were doing with feeding, that when I tried to reintroduce breastfeeding, and because it is something that you have to learn together, they obviously like didn't like it, because on the breast they have to essentially work to let the milk down and drink, versus a bottle it's much easier for them, so to speak. And it was very like difficult and overwhelming process. I think just navigating breastfeeding in general, like people don't talk about it as like enough. You just think like, oh, it's just gonna come so naturally because this is what I meant to do. Like, no, like you both have to learn what to do. And yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard to like have a baby on your boob and she's basically screaming into your boob because she's like, what is going on? Like, give me the food. This is not happening. And it was hard for me, like emotionally. Like I felt like a failure. I felt like I couldn't do it, and I felt like I was like upsetting my baby. And so slowly but surely I kept like pushing off the urge to practice. And ultimately, like, I ended up making the decision and having a conversation with Daniel that I was just happy with where we were at, like exclusively pumping and supplementing with formula where I needed to, because I knew the girls were at least still getting my breast milk and they were thriving and they were doing so well and they're so healthy. So breastfeeding never happened for me, which is sad, but I'm like totally at peace with it. I'm happy that the girls are fed and doing great. And then in terms of now feeding, we are 4.5 months in. The girls are doing really well, and I'm currently weaning my pump. So I'm actually down to 2 pumps a day, and I'm about to wean to 1, and they will be fully on formula. So that is where we're at with feeding. A big reason for the change, I always told myself I wanted to exclusively pump till 6 months. So we didn't quite get there because we actually have a trip coming up, and it might seem like a silly reason, but I didn't want to like worry about navigating that while on a trip of like refrigeration and heating and pumping and all that stuff. And I just chose to slowly transition them to formula, which they're doing great on as well, and wean on the pumping. So that is where we're at with feeding. The next thing I wanted to talk about was navigating like life and routine with twins. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I feel like this could probably be its own video. Okay, before having twins, or a baby, just in general, talking to people, I don't even know where to start. I don't know if it's like the naivety that you just have before becoming a parent, and maybe everyone is like this before having 1 baby or 2 babies or however many babies you have. But we were like, oh yeah, like it's not gonna be that bad, or it's not gonna be double hard. Like this is just gonna be the same type of hard as someone who's having 1 baby. Like we don't have anything to compare to. You know, like babies sleep all the time. Like I don't even know what world we were living in. Oh my gosh, I obviously like can't even speak to having 1 baby because I've never had 1 baby, so this is just my experience having 2 babies. It is so hard. I don't know how I made it through the first couple months. Those were like some dark days. So having 2 babies who are kind of like developmentally at the same place is crazy, because at the end of the day, no matter what, you are outnumbered if you're by yourself. So I always picture like the typical, you know, mom and dad with 1 baby, and the mom usually like bears a lot of that weight because they are often like breastfeeding, or they're on their maternity leave, and like the dad is going to work and blah blah blah. Like that like never happened for us, because 1, the girls were bottle fed from day 1, so like Daniel was always doing 50-50 with me, and yeah, you're just like outnumbered with 2 babies all the time in terms of their needs, and rocking them to sleep and soothing them, and it's so difficult. And we decided pretty early on that them sleeping in our room was just not gonna happen, because as a newborn, you know how they make like so many noises, and they're grunting and they're waking, and especially in the early days, they're not on a routine, and 1 is waking, 1 is sleeping, and so you truly like are awake the whole time. So we decided we were gonna do shifts. So what we did is I would go to bed at 8 p.m. and I would wake up at 2 a.m. and Daniel would stay up that time with the girls, and he would go to bed at 2 a.m. and then essentially get up at 8 a.m. for work. And so I would be up from like 2 a.m. till 8 p.m. of the following, or I guess the same day, but you know what I mean, that night. And we moved the girls into the living room, and basically like the person on shift would either sleep on the couch or just like stay awake. Like oftentimes Daniel would just stay awake during his shift, like 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And we would feed solo, take care of them solo, and do everything solo. And it was a lot. There was some nights where it would go smooth, and there's other nights where you have witching hour for a very long time, and you're just by yourself riding the wave of trying to soothe and comfort two babies at the same time because you're letting the other person sleep. So the first few months were really, really hard, but we were adamant from day one, or even like pre-babies, that we were gonna really be advocates for good sleep and getting in a routine. And I truly felt that was the only way to survive with two babies, was making sure that they were on a routine and they were on a schedule as much as they could be. And so we really did that from day one. Like, we did our best to, we made sure that no matter what, they always fed at the exact same time. It didn't matter if one was sleeping, we would wake the other baby up. So they always fed at the exact same time, hence them being like the same weight. We made sure that we were always trying to put a baby to sleep at the same time. So they were going to bed at the same time. And if one baby woke up, we woke up the other one. We didn't let the other one sleep longer. We really made sure that they were having like the same sleep patterns as much as we could. And we always chose to do that so that as they grew, they would kind of have the same cues at the same time, versus always like being on opposite schedules because maybe one like needs less sleep or vice versa. And then you're kind of like always on doing those things. So we did that from the early days. I would say the first couple months are just like the typical gong show of newborn life. You're just in a fog. You're just doing whatever you can to survive. I remember thinking like, there's no way we're gonna get through this. Like, lots of tears were shed. Like, it's just hard, and like times two. But then come 3 months, you do start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, because the girls started having like personalities. You started feeling the reward of parenthood. Like, they weren't these little like blobs anymore. They were starting to like be more aware of you. They're starting to coo and make little noises and smile at you. And you're like, okay, like this, you know, this feels worth it. And then their sleep very much became a routine. So we, from the beginning, have pretty much followed the Moms on Call schedule, and we still do to this day. So we were making sure that we were like feeding at specific times. They fed every 3 hours during the day, and then before they would feed like maybe twice at night, but again at the exact same time. And we were very scheduled with when they were napping, how long they're napping for, when they're feeding, their wake windows, and we're very like rigid with that, and we still are to this day. So the girls are 4.5 months. We're following the we're still following the 8 to 16 week schedule, because again, I mentioned we're going away, so we don't want to like change things up right now. But basically they feed 5 times a day, so 7, 10, 1, 4, and 7. They don't feed at night unless they like wake up, and then we again wake both up, and we give them a little like snack bottle, but they usually don't feed at night anymore or overnight. And they nap for an hour and a half, so we make sure if we are napping them, we're putting them in their crib. They usually do like 30 to 40 minutes, and then the rest is usually contact nap, but we are making sure that they're always getting like that chunk of sleep. And if for whatever reason like one baby's not going back to sleep, then we're waking the other one up, and we're kind of sacrificing that nap. But we're really like rigid with the time and making sure we're really following their wake windows, to make sure that they're like doing well and they're just like thriving in that routine. Because I just feel like, again, I don't have any experience with one baby, so I don't know if it's different or what, but I just feel like with twins, you have to have a routine, because you will make it. If they are on opposite schedules, you're always going to be like navigating one situation with one baby and with the other. Like, you're going to be feeding one baby, and then you can't even have a break, because eventually that baby, the next baby's gonna feed, and then now that baby's gonna be getting tired, but how do you soothe that baby because that one's like awake now? Like, it's just like always gonna clash, and I just feel like being on the same schedule is so important. So that is our like navigating routine with twins. And I think my camera's gonna die, so we'll see. Okay, my camera died. I charged it like a little bit, and I can kind of hear the girls popping off. They're downstairs with Daniel, so might have to wrap this up soon. But in terms of how I'm feeling, doing like a mental check-in, I am so much better than the beginning. Like I feel like I'm coming into myself again. I feel more rested. Like sleep deprivation is a real thing that I feel like truly people don't talk about it, and maybe it's because like you have to experience it to understand it, but like the first like few months I just feel like were such dark days, and you just feel like you're never gonna get out of it. But you do, and you start to see the light again. And I still feel like sometimes, especially with the weather here, it's starting to get nicer, but we have a lot of like gloomy days. And I feel like someone's not happy. But I feel like oftentimes it can feel like Groundhog Day, where you're kind of cooped up and you're doing the same things over and over again. And that's really hard for me. Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap this video up, but overall I'm feeling really good. I'm getting back into my own routines. The girls are on a really good schedule. They're happy, they're thriving, they have their personality, which is really fun. Hopefully you'll get to see more of them on the vlog. But yeah, I just feel like I'm like kind of seeing, I'm not saying it's not going to be challenging, because I have 2 babies. Like the next few years are going to be challenging, but I feel like those like newborn days are very much like you're still in like the darkness of recovery and like learning and navigating and taking care of newborns, and it's a lot. And so now I just feel like we're getting close to 5 months, and I'm just like feeling a lot better mentally and emotionally. Physically, I'm catching up on sleep, I'm moving my body more, I'm getting outside, I'm taking showers first thing in the morning, I'm keeping my spaces clean, like taking care of the girls, and they're very happy babies. And so that's very like reassuring and feels good. Not saying that there are not bad days, because there definitely are, where I'm having like a mental breakdowns, like I cannot do this anymore, but for the most part we're making it through. And the girls are doing great. Like I said, they are thriving. We are actually headed to Florida on our first family vacation, so that will be a whole thing. I'm going to try and vlog it as well and share like travel tips. Obviously, like I'll let you know what works, what doesn't work. Yeah, and I'm excited to be on this platform again and share more. I'm filming a weekend in my life as we speak as well, so that's on the docket to come. If you're watching, or no, it's going to be after this video, so that will come first. But yeah, I'm excited to just like be back on here. I don't know, I'm not gonna like talk about consistency or like posting once a week or anything like that right now, because I just don't know how much like time I have, especially like dedicating to like editing and stuff. But I definitely want to keep sharing and keep vlogging, so that is the plan. And I'm gonna go, well, it sounds like he did something with the girls, because they're not crying anymore. But see, this is life with 2 babies when you're outnumbered. If one starts to pop off because they're on such a schedule, the other one's gonna pop off, and then you're like, oh my god, I gotta sort this out. So cheers and welcome back.